Hello, hello. Welcome to the Empires Clash podcast, where we got the owners of the IFL, GFL, and a couple of team owners as guests today. Anyways, let's start this off. We're on week 10 of the IFL. So, top teams right now, we've got the San Diego Aftershocks, 8-1, Chicago Tigers, 8-1, Mexico City Diablos, which is a surprise, at 7-2. And then leading the East is the Celtic Tigers, 6-3. Wild card teams: the Huskies, 7-2, Flyers, 6-3, which are reigning champions, and the Oklahoma City Nighthawks, season 1 champions, sitting at 6-3. So let me ask Braden this first one: who do you think has a realistic chance at the championship this season?
I would have to go. I think the Aftershocks made a lot of really good moves in the off-season. I was an early proponent saying they had the best off-season of any team in the IFL. And I think they have probably one of the more balanced squads in the league. Their defense is straight up elite with Sean Steele. That rookie is just having a blast out there, and he's probably going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, if not Defensive Player of the Year. And, Darren Jansen, I know he hasn't put up a bunch of elite numbers so far this year, but he's still getting the job done. Isaac Harper and Zach Peters, it's kind of hard to say the Aftershocks aren't going to go far in this competition, I'd say.
I like that analysis. I'm really digging on the Aftershocks. The only thing is, though, we do have to look out for the Chicago Tigers. Now, there are two key...
Aftershocks just beat the Tigers by quite a bit, though, did they not?
That is true, but I've been hearing a lot of controversial back and forth talk about the Tigers not being able to perform because of the loss of halfback Perez Frederick and the loss of star wide receiver Sylvester McAllister. Justin, do you think this affects the Tigers at all?
Yeah, especially Perez. That's a huge loss. He was probably the most impressive player, if not the best player on their team. And obviously, if they lose him, they're going to lose a big, chunk of their chances of winning.
That is true. And so hopefully he will be back playoff time. And it looks like the Tigers are still pushing along, getting a win this week against the who did they play this week? They got a 3-point win over the San Antonio Dreadnoughts. But Perez Frederick is your reigning Offensive Player of the Year. And we thought Mike Hobson was carrying this team, but it looks like possibly not. But that leads us into our MVP predictions. Our top 3 candidates are Mike Hobson of the Tigers, Javon Warren of the Dublin Celtic Tigers, and a new runner, Brendan Wall of the Flyers. Justin, who's looking like your favorite right now?
I don't know, man. It's hard.
It is a tough one.
Can you repeat them one more time?
What was that?
Can you repeat the names?
Yeah, Mike Hobson of the Tigers, Javon Warren of the Celtic Tigers, and Brendan Wall of the Flyers.
Probably Mike Hobson.
That is true.
And isn't Warren a rookie?
He was last year. He's a second year.
But then maybe, I don't know, that's hard.
Yeah, they're back and forth because we can't tell if Mike Hobson is having a good season because of Perez Frederick or if he's just that good. And the Celtic Tigers keep bouncing back and forth. They're they're just not a steady team this year.
Consistent.
Exactly.
I would say Brendan Wall is definitely the dark horse here because, I don't see him taking home MVP. I think he's a bit overrated in my opinion. I think he's just not clutch in my opinion. I know they won the championship last year, but I just don't see him taking it all. I think Hobson probably has the best chance just because he's on the best team of the 3.
That is true, and Brendan Wall is only sitting 6th or 7th currently in passing yards, so he's not even a top 3 passer. So I think it's more about I think it'll come down between Hobson and Warren for the MVP race. So moving on, let's talk about these Lumberjacks. So week 10 standings are going to be coming out here soon, but the Lumberjacks finally got their first win since week 3. They won in overtime, 34-31, and we just have to talk about it. Who are we here to blame? Joey Baker, the loss of Isaac Harper, or old coach Paul Soonier? Justin, take this one.
Definitely the coach was just. Yeah, he was just bad, man. He wasn't doing anything right. He was just terrible, really. On both sides of the ball, he was just very inconsistent with his play calls. It was just out of place. It was just bad.
It's very surprising.
Like, his team is so good. Just like to be losing.
Exactly, because all you guys lost were wide receiver Isaac Harper. I know he was a stud, but he was very overrated in a sense where you guys had enough talent across the field. And defensive side, you guys even added to the team.
Exactly. But don't get me wrong, Isaac Harper is a great wide receiver. But I mean, Joey Baker can be successful without him, man. He's shown this year that he's been successful, like, statistically. But it's just, the coach isn't helping at all. The coach is just been a drive down.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with coaching, and but I also think Joe Baker might just be caught up a little too much in this beef with Isaac Harper. I know they had a huge beef in the offseason, and I think that might be contributing to kind of a distraction for him. I think it's producing poor results on the field, if you ask me.
That is true. I mean, you come off a championship loss being so close to the win. You lose your head coach who you've been coached with for, 2 seasons, and then you lose your star wide receiver that obviously you're close with. It might just be not an actual he can't perform. Like, he's not actually that good. He's just not performing well this season. So I think we will have to see the rest of the season how they do. And hopefully next season we can see the Lumberjacks back in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So Memphis Egyptians just talked with their coach, and they are deciding to tank the rest of the season and bench Michael Sheets after signing the biggest IFL contract.
Wow.
So
that is crazy.
It is. So what they're deciding to do is let the rookies go in and see who is worth keeping and worth trading, and then letting Sheets rest up for next season and just securing the number 1 pick right now. So bold move from Memphis.
I think that's going to play a part in creating a toxic culture out in Memphis, I would argue, because I think if you're not putting out the best players out there to win and putting out the best product you can on the field, I think the fans are going to suffer from that, and I think the players themselves aren't going to buy into you as a coach or you as a GM. They're just going to think you don't actually care that much about winning. You're just trying to get a good draft pick.
Yeah, that's spot on right there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's just going to lead to players not wanting to even play for the team anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
This tanking is never really good, other than getting first round,
Exactly.
first pick, and everything. But sitting up the best players is just going to make the fans extremely unhappy, and the players even more unhappy. They're going to want to get traded, and it's just there's more bad coming out of tanking than there is good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
what's
the point of having that first overall pick if they don't even want to play with you, you know?
Exactly. And you look at him saying, let's bench Sheets so he can rest up for next season. But that's an interesting statement because that's really only what you do in the playoff or in the preseason, excuse me. Wouldn't you think you'd keep Sheets out there to keep him getting used to his entire team, so he can be even better for next season?
Yeah, exactly. And isn't that going to create some kind of resentment on the team? Like, Sheets is literally just getting paid this record-breaking contract
to sit on the bench,
just to sit on the bench.
Exactly.
He's not even having to put in any effort whatsoever. Like, if I were a player on that team, I would be very mad by that. And I wouldn't see Sheets as a leader, because a leader doesn't volunteer to sit himself out for the rest of the season. You know?
Exactly true. So we're going to have to see how that turns out, and we'll just see what happens with Memphis. But moving on from Memphis in the north, we're going to go to the east, to the Brooklyn Bulls. And that's who we were talking about. Thomas Pita, the old coach of the Lumberjacks, moved on and got hired on by Brooklyn. Well, they started out 0-4, And surprising fact, actually, they are 5-0 since. So I think Thomas Pete is doing a good job coaching Dwight Rhodes, the sophomore quarterback currently. And so they're looking like a good team. I don't see them. They're only one game behind the Celtic Tigers, so they are nowhere near out. So they're looking good right now.
I think Thomas Pita coming in, he must have brought like a major culture change to that organization or something. Whatever he's telling those players, they're buying into that. And now they haven't lost a game with him since, right?
Exactly.
5 straight games.
5 straight games. So it seems like it took about a first quarter of the season to everybody get used with each other and everybody connect. And now it looks like it's taking its toll and doing Brooklyn right.
Yeah, sometimes with coaches, it just takes a little bit of time for all the players to figure out their system, especially if their game plan, their system and everything is so complicated. So, you might just be seeing something like that, like those first 4 games, they hadn't completely figured it out yet, and they're still trying to mesh together and everything.
Exactly.
But once it clicked,
Exactly. Sweet. And so on a side note for the IFL, Brendan Burrow, quarterback for the Toronto Huskies, just broke an IFL record, 530 pass yards. Only sad part is they did take a loss to the Oklahoma City Nighthawks in Week 10. But congratulations, Brendan Burrow, on setting the IFL record.
I said it can't celebrate that way. Celebrate that record with a win.
It would be nice.
What are the odds of an IFL passing record and a GFL passing record getting set at the same exact time?
That is completely true.
Pretty crazy.
Let's talk some college ball. Justin, have you seen any players recently that, is catching Portland's eye?
Give me a second to think about it. I'm still working, I haven't really been, eyeing out just one player.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been, really keeping my eye on a whole variety.
I'll tell you who I'm most impressed by. I'm definitely most impressed by Bruce Curtis out of Utah.
Yes, wide receiver.
Yeah. And he's also from Gardnerville, Nevada. Fun fact, that's pretty cool. Shout out to my Gardnerville homies. But yeah, I think he's got, he's 6'1", he's 200 pounds, and he's a balanced wide receiver. I think that's that's really gonna help. You kind of need. I think a lot of people get focused on certain stereotypes for wide receivers, but I think having an all-around kind of guy, like a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none type player is really beneficial on the field.
What's a good team you see him fitting on right now?
Team with a wide receiver need. I want to say that he should go to the Aftershocks, but the Aftershocks definitely don't have any need at wide receiver. But maybe Memphis. Maybe he'd work in Memphis.
He could.
He does seem like he has a really good work ethic, and maybe he could be kind of that leader they need on that team.
Him pairing up with Deron George right now, getting passes from Michael Sheets. Maybe that would be Memphis' turning point. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's look at some other upcoming prospects. So another player hasn't officially declared yet, but we've talked about before is free safety Tariq Flowers from Oregon. This kid's looking really solid right now. He's having a really good season. This kid's a hard hitter. I think he has 5 forced fumbles on the season, which actually leads the ICAA. And he's on a really good team. He's on the undefeated number 3 Oregon Ducks. So I think they even might have a chance, possibly, at the ICAA championship. So, and then top quarterback prospect. Actually, this is the only quarterback that is honestly ranked a starter. And I don't know if any teams are looking at him. Quarterback Glenn Hicks right now of USC. So, any teams needing a quarterback, that is going to be your guy. But if you need a quarterback, if more than one team needs a quarterback, good luck this draft.
It's going to be a pretty tough draft to get a quarterback, I'm sure.
So, a few more ICAA notes. We've got some upcoming stars that I'd like to talk about. Jordan Johnson is currently leading Oregon right now as a sophomore quarterback, so keep your eye out on him. Freshman quarterback Pavo Frederick, younger brother of Perez Frederick, is at Texas. And then keep an eye out for the Haynes brothers, Darrell Haynes, I believe, and Leon Hayes. They are both at Clemson, and they're both freshmen, so keep your eyes out for those. And thank you for tuning in for the IFL and ICAA segments.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GFL segment of the Empire's Clash podcast. So I'm just going to give you some up-to-date GFL news. So as of right now, the GFL is in its 12th season. That you can check out the entire series on my YouTube channel. Just look up Global Football League and you'll find it. So right now, week 1 of season 12, we had our defending champions, the San Diego Red Dragons, who just accomplished something that has never been done before in GFL history, which was a three-peat. They won 3 consecutive championships, and Stephen Barnes, the starting quarterback for the Red Dragons, won 3 consecutive MVPs, which is pretty impressive, wouldn't you say, Zach?
I think that is just out of this world. I've never, ever heard of that before.
Stephen Barnes he's a man amongst boys. It's the best way to describe him because he is just something else, a generational talent, and definitely the GOAT in GFL history as of this moment.
This guy started and founded the GFL. He's been here since day one, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. He was drafted in our first ever draft right before season 2, and then he just won an MVP right as a rookie, and he has not looked back. He's won 5 MVP awards already.
Literally, this is how when you hear the Global Football League, all you're gonna think of is quarterback Stephen Barnes for the San Diego Red Dragons.
He's the face of the league. He is what Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes.
He's the Patrick Mahomes for sure right now.
He's what LeBron is to the NBA. That's what Stephen Barnes is to the
exactly.
GFL. So yeah, Stephen Barnes. So on the topic of Stephen Barnes, we just had our week 1 game. It was the season 12 opener between the Mexico City Golden Eagles and the San Diego Red Dragons. And Stephen Barnes, the Red Dragons, they all came firing right out of the gate, looking to try and make a 4-peat happen, I guess, because they had Stephen Barnes set 2 GFL records in this game. He had 653 passing yards.
Yeah, you heard that right.
Opening game. 653 passing yards, which is far and away a GFL record. There's nothing even close to that. The second closest to that was also done by Stephen Barnes. That'd be 539 passing yards. So, just so you know, this is the caliber of player you're dealing with here. And, but also, Stephen Barnes in this game, he had 7 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. That's 8 total touchdowns for Stephen Barnes. And it's really just an incredible performance. They absolutely demolished this Golden Eagles team. And Mexico City's secondary is not bad at all. They have 2 very solid corners. But I guess they just couldn't handle Stephen Barnes, as very few players can. So, what do you think about that week, Zach?
Week 1 was just out of the books. I mean, setting 2 records alone is just, honestly, this is going to be the guy who, as soon as he retires, he's getting into the Hall of Fame day of he retires. This is how good and elite Stephen Barnes is. No question, first round Hall of Famer.
No question
ballot.
At all. First ballot right away. No question. And, I mean, you just hear all the fans, probably mostly fans in the West, who are just holding on to blind hope. They're saying they're always like, oh, this will be the year that Stephen Barnes regresses. This will be the year that he's just not as good. And just what a statement on opening week to show people that he is not done yet.
He is nowhere.
He's coming for his 4th ring in a row.
Not just does he just captured his 5th MVP and his 3rd consecutive ring right now.
Yeah.
He does all that, but then he comes out week 1, exactly what you're saying, and says, guess what?
Exactly.
I'm still not done.
He's still the king, and we all have to hail the king.
And what do you do to the king?
Yeah, and what can you even do to defend Stephen Barnes? It seems almost impossible to defend him at this point, because to defend against him, he has torn up the most elite secondaries in the league consistently.
Exactly.
In the season 11 playoffs, he destroyed the Toronto Mounties. He put up 50-plus points in that game. Stephen Barnes he just can't be contained, and he is just a monster out on that field.
Exactly.
So really, if you want Stephen Barnes to be stopped, you just have to figure out a way to not get him in the playoffs. Because once he's in the playoffs, he's for sure unstoppable.
So we look back 7 seasons ago from now, and is that number correct? 7 seasons, 7 years, where he signed.
For what?
When Stephen Barnes signed his massive contract. So
yes, he signed a massive 7-year, almost $300 million contract about 7 seasons ago. And so that's the next point on our docket here, is that now Stephen Barnes is due for a contract extension.
Exactly.
And a lot of the rumors I'm hearing is that the Red Dragons might not even get a deal done with him.
Do they not have the cap space, or are they just not looking to re-sign him? What do you think's going on?
It's just, I think that Stephen Barnes wants a much higher percentage of their salary cap than the Red Dragons are willing to offer, which in my opinion is just bogus, because he really is your entire franchise. Like, he's the guy you have to re-sign no matter what. But at the same time, I can kind of understand where San Diego's coming from this, because he's 30 going on 31 right now. And, I know quarterbacks in this league can play still at an elite level in their older age. Like we saw it with Nolan Grant and Dale Barton. They both played until they were 38, and they were still playing at a high level. So, a 7-year contract wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. But I also think the Red Dragons kind of want to be in a place where they can retain all of their young talent, because they do have a lot of young talent right now.
Exactly.
They've got Amari Corbett, their running back, is an absolute stud. And, so I just think there's probably – and Nelson Pryor, too. Their wide receiver is really good. So I think they want to have a balanced team. And I think they're going to get a contract. I think they're going to be able to get an extension done. But, it'll be – they're cutting it pretty close, I think. And I don't think it's going to be over quite so quickly. So
personally, seeing this from my point of view, I'm seeing like the smart financial move with from the Red Dragons front office. Smart idea to do. I think sign Stephen Barnes to about a 3-year contract, but give him the amount of money he wants per year, because I can guarantee you we still have about 3 more solid seasons of elite talent left. But then after that, then I think we might have to start going 2-year contracts, maybe even 1-year contracts, because we do know around 33, 35, he might not be putting up the type of numbers he's been putting up these last 3 seasons, these performances. So I think the smart thing is sign him to a 3, maybe even a 4-year contract, because that's going to be that's how many more solid elite seasons we have left with Stephen Barnes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, the San Diego really doesn't want him to hit free agency, because if Stephen Barnes hits free agency, all hell is going to break loose. It's going to be the biggest free agency in GFL history. And I really don't think they want that. So what I'm kind of hearing, what I've been hearing from my sources out in the field, is there's a possibility that rather than just giving Stephen Barnes the flat salary he wants, they're also going to tie in a percentage of the ownership in San Diego. So perhaps he might be getting shares of ownership in the Red Dragons franchise, so he gets lots of those merchandising rights and all that stuff.
That'd be a smart financial move on Barnes' part.
Yeah, I think that would be really smart. And then once Stephen Barnes eventually retires, maybe he could just look into buying out the other shares and becoming the full owner of the Red Dragons. Which
Exactly.
that'd be something I'm sure the San Diego fans would love.
That is true.
So yeah, that's our news about in the Stephen Barnes world right now.
So keep it on the Stephen Barnes topic for just a quick sec.
Yeah, for sure.
So, obviously we still have a few more seasons with Stephen Barnes, but now we're talking, 3 seasons down the road. He's getting close to calling it a career. What have the Red Dragons been doing for his successor? Have we seen a solid backup quarterback who's been learning, or is that something that's still not determined yet in San Diego?
That is definitely something San Diego's been kicking the can down the road on. They really this just shows me that they really don't want to lose Barnes because they have nothing behind him. They had a solid scrambler for a while there named Zach Lanningham, but he was no Stephen Barnes. He was just a scrambler.
Yeah, I heard that kid kind of sucked anyways.
He's kind of a glorified backup. He's kind of gone all around the league as a backup. But, yeah, the Red Dragons have made no effort whatsoever to try and look for a quarterback and for the future beyond Barnes. And, honestly, if they can re-sign him, I don't think they need to worry about that for a couple more seasons.
Exactly.
Really, I think you need to start looking into that probably around when your quarterback's looking to retire in about maybe 2 seasons.
Exactly.
Because I do think they want to get somebody in there before Barnes retires, because
be under his wing for like a season.
Be very invaluable to be able to learn behind a talent like Barnes.
Exactly.
So yeah. So that is the news in Barnes world, and I'm sure we are going to be having a Stephen Barnes segment pretty much every single week we do this podcast. Stephen Barnes he really just is the GFL, and all of his news is the most noteworthy thing to happen in the GFL. So that's what's going on with Stephen Barnes. We just got a couple more things to talk about with the GFL. Barnes, for as great as he is, actually is in 3rd place in the West right now, which is kind of surprising. It looks like in the past couple seasons, the West has started bringing out more competitive teams. It's been pretty rare for most of this entire series, but the West is finally putting out some more competitive teams. So 2 of those teams are the Elks and the Miners, and both of them have done a lot to try and combat Stephen Barnes here. And the Miners actually took a risk. They let go of longtime quarterback and 2-time global champion Will Tatum. He was their starter for a long time, and he won the first ever GFL Global Championship. They let him walk in free agency this past season, and so everybody thought this meant they were going to be using the rookie quarterback they drafted last year, Wes Jordan. A lot of people thought it meant that it was his time to start. And I think Wes Jordan thought that too. But then Sacramento made a very, very unprecedented surprise move, and they traded for Raymond Hartley from the Brooklyn Beats, who, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I'd say he's probably a glorified game manager. He was a top quarterback prospect coming out of college, but really he just hasn't panned out, and the Beats decided to bench him 2 seasons ago in favor of Dale Bartlett. And then the Beats and the Miners pretty much just switched starting quarterbacks, because the Miners now have Raymond Hartley starting, and the Beats now have Will Tatum starting. And the Beats aren't doing so well. They haven't won a game yet. But the Miners are undefeated with Raymond Hartley. So
interesting.
So, Zach, do you think that Raymond Hartley could have a kind of career renaissance here in Sacramento?
Honestly, I'd like to say that. We've seen that quite a bit in the GFL. Take a look at Dale Bartlett, who went from the Cougars to the Snowhawks, didn't have a good season, and got traded to the Beats. and had, what was that, 2 playoff seasons, correct?
That was with the Lancers first, yes.
Lancers,
he went to the Lancers first after the Snowhawks, and then had 2 very elite seasons. Made it to the semifinals of both seasons, and he had what is probably one of the, if not the most iconic moment in GFL history, which is Bartlett's drive. He made a 75-yard drive in a blizzard to tie up the game in the playoffs against the Mounties, and the Lancers wound up winning that.
I forgot about that game
in overtime. That was a career-defining moment and really just a GFL-defining moment. So you're saying you think Raymond Hartley could have a similar experience to Bartlett?
I do believe that because we look at the minors were good. I'd say probably the first 4 or 5 seasons of the GFL, but I really haven't seen them, be an impactful team since then.
Yeah.
And so I think this is the right move. I think it's always good to just move on from a certain quarterback who's just not performing well, because we don't even know how Will Tatum's going to be doing with the Beats, because it's only week 3, week 4 in the GFL currently.
It's week 4, yes.
Week 4, so it's still pretty early, and so let's just we got to see where this goes. But this could be Raymond Hartley fitting in with the right system, the right coaches, and the right management. And this could just be clicking for him, and we could really see a deep playoff run from the minors that we have not seen in a long time.
That would be incredibly impressive, yeah. I think, and also Raymond Hartley is not that old yet. He is only 28 years old. So if he does wind up having a kind of career renaissance here in Sacramento, he could be their starter for a long time. But then that begs the question, what's going to happen to Wes Jordan, who was seen as a very, very talented rookie?
Exactly.
Have to assume he probably gets traded somewhere, right?
That could be the possibility, or we could just see, because what season was Hartley drafted in?
He was drafted in the season 6 draft.
Okay, so yeah, he is still pretty young. I mean, he's only been around for half the GFL lifespan, and so it depends on how Wes Jordan, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Wes Jordan is, how his performance was, because is a team going to want to take a chance on him? Because if no teams are going to take a chance on him, the minors can't get anything for him, so he might just have to stay a backup. So
that's absolutely true.
It depends on on what teams need right now.
Yeah. So speaking of quarterback controversies, I just witnessed a massacre here to close out week 3 between the Sentinels and the Snowhawks. The Portland Snowhawks have quarterback problems right now. Their starting quarterback right now is a guy they drafted. His name's Wesley Polk.
Okay.
They drafted him 2 seasons ago. They had a lot of high hopes for him. He originally started out on the bench. He took a year to develop behind their starting quarterback, Jared Bach, who was a former first overall pick by the London Black Knights, but he didn't really work out over there. They wanted to get their current quarterback, Javante Maggott. So that resulted in them trading Jared Bach to the Portland Snowhawks. And so Bach had a pretty average season with the Snowhawks when he was their starter. He's still on the roster right now, but they decided to draft Wesley Polk just because, he fell to their spot in the first round 2 seasons ago, and they just felt like they had to pull the trigger on a talent like that.
Exactly.
But, what the game I just witnessed is not helping Wesley Polk's case at all. The Sentinels just destroyed the Snowhawks 24-6. Wesley Polk did not score a single touchdown, and he barely had over 100 yards passing.
Wow.
And the Snowhawks they're 0-3 right now, and they are coming off of just having the first overall pick, and they're already looking like they're trying to fight for that first overall pick again. So the question here that I have for you, Zach, is do you think they should try to ride out the rest of the season with Wesley Polk and maybe just see what they have with him before they decide to part ways, or should they put Jared Bach in and if they feel he makes them more competitive?
It depends. How many seasons have you said? Did Wesley Polk start last season, or is this his first start?
He started last season, and they wound up with the first overall pick. And now he's starting this season, and they're looking to do it right over again.
Oof. So. And then Jared Bach is new to this team?
He was on the team. He's been on the team 3 seasons now. This is his 3rd season on the team. He was the starter originally with Wesley Polk underneath him, and then last year Wesley Polk beat him out for the job, but they still finished the first overall pick. So, lots of Portland fans are calling for Bach right now.
Honestly, I think it's, if Polk is not working out, I think it's time to move on. I think we should maybe give him 2 weeks max, and see if there's anything in him that considers him a possible potential starting quarterback. Because honestly, if he can't perform well at all, and especially if he's playing against bad teams, he's not going to have a job. He's going to get kicked right out of the GFL, and so...
That's very true.
I'm thinking...
And actually, right as we're talking about this, I'm actually receiving word that Portland has decided to bench Wesley Polk, and they are going to start Jared Bach.
Okay. I think the Portland fans might be happy about this.
They answered the question for us. Portland really doesn't want to have that first overall pick again. They don't want to be tanking, and so I think they're just going to try out Bach for a couple weeks here and see what they got. If Bach doesn't do any bit better, then I'd say they'll probably put Polk back in, give him another chance. But, I think they just want to try and stay competitive, or as competitive as they possibly can right now.
So we're going to get back to this topic, but let's jump right over to the Dublin Shamrocks, who are coming off of a championship appearance, and they're 0-4 right now. Is that correct?
That's correct. They have not won a single game yet, which is insane for the Shamrocks. They have been insanely competitive the past several seasons. They were the first team to ever repeat in the championship. So this is really just shocking, and I'm not sure what to attribute this to necessarily. I think it might just come down to coaching. They had a really good thing going when they had Carl Meyer as their head coach, but unfortunately he had to step down because he found out that he had lung cancer.
Oh my gosh!
So unfortunately he had to step down from the head coaching position, and maybe. I mean, this coach they have right now, he's doing all right for him. He did all right for him last year. He got him to the championship and everything. But also,
he doesn't have experience.
There was a substantial amount of luck involved in that too.
Okay.
Because really, they just got lucky that the Lancers didn't really show up in their game that they were supposed to. The Lancers were supposed to steamroll them. So Bauman, who's their coach, I wouldn't say he did everything to carry that team. I think that team is really spearheaded by the three-headed monster that is Lane Knox, Malik Blackburn, and Donald Clark.
That is a very scary trio.
Yeah. But, I think Malik Blackburn is 33 years old now. He is not the same running back he used to be. We just have to face it.
That is true, because it doesn't seem like there were any big notable key losses from the Shamrocks. It just seems like this, these top-notch players are just going, not going downhill, but just losing a bit of a step.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really not even like Donald Clark and Lane Knox are still performing at, a great high level like they always have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Malik Blackburn, he really was the centerpiece of this offense, and as of right now, we haven't seen him do anything that he's supposed to be doing. So, he's just, I watched him in week 2. He was consistently getting stuffed. So they gotta figure something out there. They gotta figure out how they're gonna overcome this obstacle. Maybe, hopefully, finally. go win the game.
Keep their playoff run alive. Anyways, let's
Exactly.
jump back up to Portland with the Snowhawks. And so we've been talking about their quarterback controversy. Who are we seeing? Are we seeing any top prospects from the GCAA that the Snowhawks could possibly take if it comes down to that?
Yes, well, so that is our next segment here is on the GCAA. And so there's a couple different pieces here that are kind of interesting. So as of right now, like going into the season, Alex Baca, the starting quarterback of Texas A&M, he was projected to be like the most talented player in the upcoming GFL draft. But unfortunately, Texas A&M has not done very much. They are currently sitting at 1-2 right now.
Okay, interesting.
And Baca's been very, very average, very middle of the pack. He hasn't been scrambling nearly as much as he does. He's a known scrambler. So I see Baca kind of falling a little bit, but Seth Wakefield, the quarterback from LSU, kind of seems like he's on the rise. He's had a pretty good season so far. But the really interesting quarterback that I think we need to take a look at is the Northwestern quarterback, Chandler Stalker. Stalker has been he's a very strange quarterback to say the least. I just watched his performance in week 3, and he threw 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions.
Whew, oh my golly.
But he also had 550 passing yards, and he had the clutch overtime win for the team.
Wow.
But I'm really not sure what to make of this. Do you see that as his draft stock going up or going down based on that performance? Or maybe even just staying the same? What do you see?
Yeah, that's one of the tough ones because you see those quarterbacks and they're throwing. They're hitting their targets. And you look at it, and it's like 2 interceptions. Or how many you say, 4 interceptions?
It was 3 interceptions and 4 touchdowns.
3 interceptions and 4 touchdowns. And you look at it, and you have over 500 yards throwing. It's like, yeah, those interceptions, they kind of hurt, but I'm looking at those touchdowns and those passing yards. That's going up and down the field 5 times, leading your team. And this overtime winner, I'm kind of pushing these interceptions to the side. Personally, I think this is elite level, and the quarterback obviously trusts these wide receivers to make these throws, and maybe the wide receivers could be off. So, honestly, I could see his stock rising from here. I don't look at it as interceptions as that bad as some others do. So.
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. He's kind of got that gunslinger mentality, and lots of great quarterbacks have been gunslingers. Brett Favre is probably the most notable example.
Exactly.
And yeah, I personally would rather have a quarterback that's willing to take those shots downfield and who's willing to do whatever it takes to win, rather than a quarterback that plays it safe. So I would say I could see Stalker rising a little bit. I could even see him possibly overtaking Alex Baca in the quarterback rankings, which before this season would have been unheard of, but that's where we are right now. I think it's very possible that Stalker could be overtaking him here.
Interesting take.
So yeah, it would be very interesting. And I actually do think he could work out in Portland's system if they are in the position to draft him. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on Stalker. But let's go forward onto our Heisman candidates right now. So we have a very interesting Heisman situation going on because our front runner by a large margin is Brent Terrell. He's a freshman quarterback from Florida.
Okay.
And he's the leader for the Heisman right now. As a true freshman starting quarterback, that is incredible, honestly. And so yeah, I would say you've got to keep an eye on him for sure. He won't be able to declare for the draft for at least another 2 or 3 seasons, but we definitely got to keep an eye on him. If he winds up pulling this off, I would say he's definitely going to be one of those highly touted generational quarterback prospects that teams are going to be lining up for.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So then also, behind Brent Harrell in the Heisman watch, we've got Kai Russell from Ohio. And this one's very interesting because Kai Russell he's really the epitome of a journeyman quarterback. He's been an incredibly average quarterback throughout his entire college career. But in the past couple weeks, he's been hot. He's come on very strong. And, he might be raising his draft stock a little bit. Because if he does raise it enough, if he wins the Heisman, he'll definitely declare for the draft. I can see it for sure.
So he's a junior or a senior this season?
He's a junior,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, so I could definitely see him declaring for the draft if he does wind up winning the Heisman. But I don't see him working out on the GFL level. I think he will probably, at most, he'll be probably a 4th or 5th round pick, even if he does win the Heisman. But you never know. Stranger things have happened for sure.
That is true. He could always turn out good in the GFL, even if he's a later pick.
Yeah, exactly. And then third in our Heisman watch is Damian Hatcher, the running back from Miami.
Okay.
Miami is just going off this season. They're undefeated right now, and Damian Hatcher is a huge part of that. The GCAA college season opened up with Miami, and Damian Hatcher had an overtime 45-yard rushing touchdown for the win.
Wow.
Which was just incredible. And so ever since that play, he has been on my radar as one of the more underrated running backs coming into this draft, and I could even see him becoming one of the top running backs in this draft.
And what class is he this year?
And he is a junior right now as well.
Okay.
But he will, if his stock is probably at an all-time high, so I could easily see him declare. And yeah, he really is. He is a stud. He's so fast and he's so elusive. It's just very hard to bring him down. So yeah, and then another running back, Nate Cofield from Ohio. So we got 2 Ohio guys here. Nate Cofield, he's been having a really good season too. I wouldn't say it's as strong as Damian Hatcher's. I think Hatcher has a stronger case here. But going into this season, Cofield was seen as the number 1 running back prospect. And for the most part, he's living up to that hype. So, and he is a senior, so he is for sure going to have to declare after this season. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Cofield does and what Hatcher does. And I look forward to watching the college career of Brent Harrell for sure.
Looks exciting, very much.
It's very exciting. All right, and then our last little bit of GCAA news here. We are going to talk about the power rankings here. Currently sitting at number 1 is Alabama, of course. The Crimson Tide, always. But the most interesting school that we're looking at is UNLV at number 3 in the power rankings.
Is that the University of Nevada, Las Vegas?
That is the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Wow.
How did this happen? Their quarterback, Chase Humes, nothing special. Very, very middle of the road quarterback. Their team as a whole is middle of the road. They rank halfway out of all colleges in offense and halfway in defense. They have nothing special on either side. But right now they're 3-0 and they're sitting at number 3 in the nation.
Have they been playing bad teams, or do you think they're just putting it together somehow?
It might be coaching. I'm not sure. It might be coaching, or they might just be having a lot of luck. Because to be honest, that is one of the biggest parts of football is luck. So, it could be a fluky season they're having. We'll see. If they can keep it up, then I will be very impressed, and I just eagerly await to see what UNLV has in store for us here.
That is true.
So that's all we got for the GCAA right now. And now we can move on to the GBA, be the Global Basketball Association. So we don't have a whole lot to talk about in GBA. We had Season 2 has just started, and Kobe Foster has already won December Player of the Month. Kobe Foster, if you remember, was the most hyped up pick in the draft. He went first overall to the San Diego Admirals. So San Diego has more luck in getting generational talent. And so, what do you think of Kobe Foster so far, Zach? Have you been impressed by him?
Kobe Foster is something else. I was actually watching that game live when he played the Rio de Janeiro Azules and went off scoring 45 points. And let me tell you this. The man in the paint is something else. Unstoppable. He was open every time. And you look at it, and, we were hyping up Kobe Foster to go to, before the draft lottery.
The Nashville Bandits, yeah.
He was getting hyped up to go to the Bandits. And then the draft lottery happened. We were like, oh my gosh. San Diego. If you're telling me that San Diego lands another generational talent player, in Kobe Foster.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
are you lucky to be a San Diego fan in the global empire?
Are you lucky? Yeah. Yeah, because seriously, he already has lived up to the hype. Like 45 points against Rio was just an insane amount of points. And I agree about him in the paint. He is just a monster in the paint. He was so efficient. He really was hitting almost all of his shots. And even when he was covered, by 2 or 3 different players, it didn't even matter. He was still making those shots.
Exactly.
And yeah, he really is a generational talent, I think. And I think that he is a future GBA star in the making.
We for sure see the Rookie of the Year award coming up, so.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind I think he's going to win the Rookie of the Year award. He does have a little bit of competition right now, but I think no doubt in my mind he's gonna take it. Well, yeah. So speaking of the poor Bandits, Nashville just can't get anything going for them. Unfortunately, there was a rumor they were eyeing Michael Stauffer to be as their prime head coaching candidate. They really wanted him to come and be their head coach because they currently do not have a head coach. Because they fired their head coach and had no backup plan in place.
Really?
Yeah, which was, pretty dumb. Their GM is taking over head coaching duties for now, but it's obviously not paying off for them. But yeah, so they have their sights set on Michael Stauffer, and they even offered him a contract and everything. They interviewed him and all that, but Michael Stauffer has shunned the Bandits, and he decided to go over to the Vancouver Ravens because they just fired their head coach, Lloyd Cook.
Wow.
So yeah, Lloyd Cook wasn't great for him. They were having a pretty mediocre start to the season, and they were pretty bad last year too. So the Ravens just decided to pull the trigger and fire him, and then Michael Stauffer immediately came in. Do you think this is because of a little bit of market size bias? Because Nashville is not a very big market, but Vancouver is a huge market.
That is true. And
yes, do you see this as is it market based, publicity based, or do you think he just believes in this team more?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's always a lot different between the coaches and the players on choosing teams. We see players going to teams because they want the championship. It's either because they want the championship or the money. Most of the time, you see the money. That's where they want. I think most of the time, coaches, because they're not getting paid as much as players, they're wanting rings. They're going to want to build their reputation. So I do see that it's a reason as chasing a championship. So that's why I believe he chose Vancouver. I don't think it was, it is a good market team, but I think Vancouver has the possibility to grow on their team bigger than Nashville. And especially, it kind of sucks to be a part of Nashville right now, whether you're a fan or actually a part of the team, because wow, we could have had Kobe Foster. That ain't happening. Wow, we could have had this, really elite coach. That isn't happening. So tough times in Nashville right now. But
it's a tough time to be a Nashville fan.
I do think Michael Stauffer might have made the right choice for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vancouver's roster is just, head and shoulders. It's more talented than Nashville's roster is. Nashville has one of the worst rosters in the league, unfortunately, and it would have been a lot better if they had Kobe Foster, but that the draft lottery is not always kind to those who it should be kind to.
That is true.
So yeah, just the last piece of news we have here for the GBA is about the Paris Royal Lions. Last year, if you'll remember, at the end of the season, they had the second worst record in the GBA, and it was kind of controversial. They decided they were going to stick with their head coach, Pooh Splitter, which just honestly is the greatest name of all time. I'm just going to say it.
How do you not stick
with that? So they had decided to keep head coach Pooh Splitter around for another season. But after a rough start to the season, they are currently winless. They have decided to part ways with Pooh Splitter. And, hopefully for Splitter's sake, he's able to find another team. But, he really hasn't shown that he's the head coach to lead him to the promised land. So instead, the Royal Lions have gone out and hired Jacob Underwood, who's kind of seen as they call him like the basketball whisperer. He's like a really good players coach is what they're saying.
Okay.
So do you think he's going to be a good morale boost for the team? Do you think he's going to be a good motivator?
Yeah, that's going to be something interesting. We're going to have to see is Paris going to be able to get their season turned around because of Jacob Underwood. And so, depending if they actually have a good team or not, I think there's going to be something for Jacob to work with. And so we'll see if they have not a good team right now, then maybe this might just be a real rebuilding season. And hopefully, the front office of Paris doesn't split him after one season, because that'd be very dumb, and it could just be a bad roster. So, but if they have a good team and they prove themselves, then I think this might be the best, a really really good hire for Paris.
Yeah, I think it's a high potential, high risk, high reward kind of hire.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't have much head coaching experience, but at the same time, he does seem like he could be a head coach in this league for a long time.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a solid hire there, and we'll just see how it works out. So yeah, that's all we've got for the Empire's Clash podcast today. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Zach?
No, that is all. I appreciate everybody sticking around and listening through the IFL Empire part of it, and then now the GFL Empire part of it. And we hope you all had a good time. We'll get to a GFL recap podcast here in a few days, and so you can recap
the whole 12 seasons that have happened.
Exactly. So, relive some Stephen Barnes greatness.
Oh yes.
Oh yes. Good times. So we enjoy, and we thank everybody for listening in, and everybody have a clashed night.